Thanks for joining us, Attorney General Stein. Let me ask you, and I'd like to talk to you about what we can do and what your office is doing to protect North Carolina from scams during this critical time with the coronavirus.
Thank you, Mark. There are two main issues that we're seeing as a result of this crisis. One is price gouging, and the other is scams and frauds. And if it's okay, we'll talk about each of them in turn.
Absolutely.
North Carolina's price gouging law came into effect a week ago Wednesday when the governor declared his state of emergency. And what the law prohibits is anybody selling an important product, a critical product that you and I need in a state of emergency at an unreasonably excessive price. We've received about 450 price gouging complaints so far. Just yesterday, 50. So we went from 400 to 450 in a single day. And the complaints have varied. About half of them are groceries. Number 2 is cleaning products. And number 3 was hand sanitizers. And we're in the process of investigating all of those complaints.
Let me ask you this. What are the penalties for this if you're caught doing it?
If you are caught engaged in price gouging, it's $5,000 per violation, and you have to pay back the folks who you ripped off. So, for instance, after Hurricanes Florence and Michael devastated eastern North Carolina about 2 years ago, my office aggressively went after price gougers, and we'd gotten a number of complaints. A lot of them had to do with services as opposed to products, things like tree removal and home repair. And we sued about 7 different lawsuits against 22 different defendants and have settled many of those cases, including the largest price gouging settlement in state history. All in, we got about $750,000 back in the pockets of North Carolina consumers. And if we see that kind of thing happening with this crisis, we will similarly aggressively enforce the law.
Let's talk about Robo Calls. Are people getting Robo Calls, particularly older people, sir?
Absolutely. I mean, robocalls is already an incredible problem. So, 50 billion robocalls last year inundating our phones. And to most people, they're an incredible annoyance. But the reason they exist is so that criminals can commit fraud on vulnerable people. They exploit any opportunity. During tax season, they'll say they're the IRS. They always use the news of the moment as a hook. And obviously, the only thing anyone can talk or think about is this coronavirus scare. And so they are exploiting that to try to get people's either their personal information or their money. We had a call that said, "Hey, I'm following up on your coronavirus test. It's positive. We will call back this number with your credit card handy so that we can put the antibiotics in the mail to you as soon as possible." Absolute fraud. One, there's no test. I mean, there's no antibiotic that will solve coronavirus. But they're just trying to steal your money. Others, they try to steal your personal information. Others, they try to get you to click on a link to install malware into your computer so they can steal your personal information or freeze up your computer. Basically, criminals will exploit a crisis like this to make money at your expense.
Mr. Attorney General, have you heard that people are going door to door and telling people that they have cures?
We had calls yesterday about folks going door to door, not that they had cures, but that they had home testing kits that were available. If people come knocking on your door, pitching you anything to do with the coronavirus, they are up to no good. They're either trying to steal your money by getting you to buy something that's worthless, or they could have worse intentions in mind, trying to get in your home and commit a robbery. So be very wary if anybody knocks on your door talking to you about the coronavirus.
So talk to us about phishing attempts by scammers on your computer.
So basically, the criminals use any kind of channel of distribution to get to you. They can call you on the phone, robocalls. They can text you where they ask you to click on a link or they promise you something if you give them a credit card. They can knock on your door, door to door, like we just talked. They use social media to have links, but they also use email. And that's phishing, where they'll send an email where they say, hey, coronavirus update. If you want to get a free kit, click here. Or just anything. It could be you need health insurance. They could say that they're here to clean your air ducts, and they send you an email. They're not always trying to get your credit card so they can steal your money. A lot of times they want to get you, like we've had some phishing attempts where they ask about health insurance, where they say, okay, you qualify for a free medical kit. Give me your health insurance information and your social security number. Then they will use that to commit identity theft in your name and ruin your good credit rating.
How should they call your office, or should they call the police department? What should they do if one of these things happens?
It depends. If it's door to door and somebody feels under physical threat, call 911, call the police department. If it's anything else, if it's let's say it's price gouging, what we ask folks to do is to file their complaints online. We have an online complaint form at ncdoj.gov/price gouging, or just Google North Carolina Department of Justice price gouging complaint. It will pop right up. That way you can provide the name of the store, the product, the price, why you think it's price gouging, and then we can then investigate it. If it's somebody calling you, if it's robocalling, we actually, before this whole coronavirus scare started, we rolled out a robocall report task force where we were asking people to let us know, and all they have to do is go to ncdoj.gov/no-robo, or they can call us toll free 844-8-NO-ROBO, and then they can report the robocall, which will help us to investigate the criminals, as well as we can then share it with our federal law enforcement partners. And then finally, if you get a call and you just don't know if it's real or not, you're like, well, maybe it sounds enough real that I should do it, but I'm not sure. Don't give in to the pressure of the person on the phone, because you have no idea who they are on the other side of the line. But call my office. We have people, the toll-free number there is 877-5-NO-SCAM. If you call them and ask them, is this something you're familiar with, they can help you to determine, is it legitimate or illegitimate. You do not want to lose your money to the criminals, because it's so hard to ever get the money back once it's been gone. It is so much better to prevent a crime before it ever happens.
Josh, let me ask you this. Talk to us about some of the executive orders that the governor has implemented. And let me ask you, how long do you think, I know it's anybody's guess, do you think this will continue into April, May, that pretty much a lockdown of North Carolina businesses?
It's impossible to know. This isn't a matter of 1 week or 2 weeks, I do not believe. But how long it goes, I don't know. Part of it depends on it depends on us. It depends on you, me, and everybody else who's watching this. Do we do our part? The only way the coronavirus spreads is from a person coming into contact with another person. No one is doing the actions so far, whether it's shutting down schools, shutting down bars and restaurants, or personal care. None of that's because anybody wants that to happen. In fact, it's the opposite of what we want to happen. But the reason why the governor did these things is because he wants to keep people from unnecessarily coming into contact with each other, because that's how it spreads. We have got to stop the spread. We have to slow the spread of this virus so that, one, our healthcare system can manage the influx of patients that's about to happen, and two, so that we can eventually get to the other side. If we have uncontrolled spreading of this, the economic dislocation will be so much worse than what we're experiencing today.
Are there penalties for restaurants that don't adhere to the regulations and not being open for business that the governor has implemented?
Yes, it is a crime to fail to comply with the governor's executive order. It's Class 2 misdemeanor. That's enforced by local law enforcement, if you're in a city, by the police, or in a county, by the sheriff. And so if folks see people not in compliance, let local law enforcement know. You don't have to call 911. You can just call the regular number. We want to keep 911 from having to respond to things that are not emergency so that they can actually respond to the emergencies when they occur. So we don't want anybody getting arrested. We don't want anyone hurting, but it's on us. If we do what we're supposed to do, if we limit our interaction with other people, if you have to go out, just stay 6 feet away from your colleagues, stay 6 feet away from wherever you are so that we can minimize the spread of this. If we flatten the curve, it will help us save lives because we will not overburden and overwhelm our healthcare system.
Josh, how are hospitals, responding? Are they being overwhelmed? Are they responding pretty well? What is the status of our hospitals?
We should definitely get the view of DHHS and the Hospital Association, but my understanding of how things are in North Carolina is that they are not currently overwhelmed by coronavirus patients. There are some who are being treated here, but they're already worrying about a lack of appropriate masks, lack of ventilators. And so they're essentially putting out an all points bulletin to anyone to say, if you have these masks, please share them, donate them to a hospital system, because they know what's coming around the corner. They can see the future. They know what's happened in other states. They know what's happened in other nations. And so it's a matter of what's coming down the road and trying to prepare for it. I know one dental office that recently just closed and donated a whole host of surgical masks to their local hospital, which is the kind of community spirit that will enable us to get through this.
I know LabCorp is working overtime. On my way into the studio, their lot was full. I mean, those folks are really contributing.
Yes, and thank goodness. Thank goodness for LabCorp. Thank goodness for other businesses. I just learned about a business in Cary that has a test that the FDA approved that will be able to determine whether folks have it or not in something like 15 minutes, which if it turns out to be that way, that's just wonderful. Frankly, we absolutely need the test. The other reasons why we want to slow the spread is not only to overwhelm the healthcare system, but it will buy us time so that the testing regimen that we so desperately need, and frankly, we lost months on here in the United States developing them. But if we can get all these tests developed and put around there, then we can actually know who has it and who doesn't. Like right now, what's so frustrating is if somebody feels a little bad, they can't get a test. And so they don't know if they have it or they don't have it. If they knew they had it, they would then know to quarantine. And second, once they've gone through it, then they know that they won't get it. And so we want to slow the spread. At the back end, engage in aggressive testing and tracing so that we test to see who's got it, trace who they've been in contact with, and then that way we can hopefully drive this thing down to zero by this summer.
Do you expect we'll see drive-through testing here, and what will be FEMA's role?
I do expect to see drive-through testing. I understand it's happening in some places already here in North Carolina. So we need much more testing than what we've had in the United States. As I said, I think it's been one of the greatest failures of our collective response. FEMA's role is to make sure people can recover. They're going to help with SBA loans. They're going to help stand up temporary hospitals along with the Army Corps of Engineers. Wherever there are real hot spots, they're going to come into play. And I do want to acknowledge and appreciate it looks like Congress has finally come together and reached a deal with the president.
On a $2 trillion package.
Which is absolutely, absolutely essential. I mean, so many people are going to lose their jobs if they haven't already. And those folks, they need help. They need to be able to buy groceries. They need to be able to pay for their utility bill. They need to be able to pay their living expenses. And so that stimulus package is going to make a huge difference. It's not anything that, again, it's nothing that anybody wants, but this virus is here. It's in this country, it's spreading, and we have to do everything we can to get it under control as quickly as possible.
You talk to the governor, I'm sure, daily or more than daily. How would you say he's interacting, or how does he think the federal response has been with the White House? I know that they're on phone calls, all the governors, with the White House. How's that working?
Yeah, I don't want to speak for the governor in terms of his impressions of the federal response, but I'm sure he'd be happy to let you know. I know he is focused on nothing other than trying to help North Carolina get through this, get through it in the most effective way that is most beneficial to people's health, that reduces loss of life, and in a way that tries to keep as much economic activity as possible going.
The $2 trillion bill, my understanding is, will get money to every family. I think it's $1,200 per person and $3,000 for a family of four. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, I have not had a chance to study the bill, so I don't want to speak to the specifics.
Yeah, I have seen that this morning. I also see that Senator Tillis is going to put a heavy fine on people who try to profit off this crisis. Have you seen that? I think it's rather substantial.
Yeah, I mean, North Carolina has a strong price gouging law, and that's what I can enforce, and I will aggressively enforce it. We've actually had some complaints by hospitals about people trying to price gouge them for surgical masks. Talk about unconscionable. I mean, how unbelievably greedy. And so we're investigating those complaints right now. But if somebody out there thinks there may be price gouging, please let my office know. File a complaint, ncdoj.gov/price gouging, or you can call our toll-free number, 877-5-NO-SCAM. Let us know, and we will investigate it. North Carolina has a strong law, and I'm dead set on making sure that people comply.
I want to recap, if you don't mind. Talk about miracle cures, people coming to your doors. What should they do in response to that? Should they contact your office?
Be absolutely skeptical. Anybody, if they're pitching a miracle cure, you know by definition they're a fraud, because there is no cure. It does not exist. It's going to take a long time for the healthcare system to figure out how to treat this, and even longer to figure out a vaccine. So don't buy their snake oil. If you have that kind of complaint, call my office. Let us know, 877-5-NO-SCAM. If you have somebody knocking on your door and you feel under threat, call local law enforcement. Call 911. Do not let anyone into your home because you don't know what they're up to. Just be very suspicious. Most people in a time like this rally together. They want to be helpful. They want to do whatever they can to help their neighbor through this crisis. So if you still have your job and you have the means, I urge you to get takeout, to continue to give your business to your local restaurants that you like, because they need help struggling to get through this, to get to the other side. Find ways to contribute, but also understand that for every 20 good people out there, there's somebody who's greedy, and there's somebody who wants to rip you off.
Let's talk about Robo Calls one more time so our viewers can hear what you have to say about that as well, sir.
Yes. The fraud comes in any sort of way. It can come by text, by email, social media, knocking on your door. But the most common way the frauds are being perpetrated is through your phone, either by voicemail or by text. They're going to pitch you home duct cleaning that will get rid of the virus. They'll say that you have a positive test. Call back with your credit card and get an antibiotic. They're going to say that they've got a coronavirus update. Click this link in order to get the information. All of it is for no good. They're either trying to steal your money or your personal information, or they're trying to put malware on your computer.
I want to talk about restrictions on childcare. I know you've been very involved with that as well.
Yes. Well, for first responders, they are able to continue to get child care. This is the challenge, is there's so many people who are in critical industries. And it's funny, Mark, our whole notion of first responder has really broadened through this crisis. We usually think of emergency management, or we think of fire, we think of police, even the military. But now it's the grocery store stock person who's restocking the shelves. It's people who are the delivery person who's delivering food to your home or a package to your home. There's so many essential industries that keep us going that we now have a greater appreciation for all of these folks. And here's one thing I do ask viewers is we're under incredible stress now. We are. It's going to get harder. We're going to get more frustrated, and sadly, people are going to get sick, and some will die. We have to be kind to each other. We have to be patient, considerate. We need to be grateful for those who are out there. So just remember that as you interact with other people. Interact with them from 6 feet apart, but let's not forget our common humanity as we struggle through this crisis.
As we go forward, the General Assembly is coming back April 14th. I don't know if they're going to be doing that by teleconferencing or how it's going to work. Do you have any request to the Speaker and to Senator Berger that you'll be putting in?
There are going to be all kinds of requests that they have to consider. Things like changes to contracts on leases for restaurants. There's so much hardship that's going to happen. They're going to have to change the school calendar to deal with the fact that schools have been closed through May. I mean, who knows? Will we have school this summer? Will we not? We don't know these things yet. They're going to have to change graduation requirements since some kids haven't been able to take whatever tests they need to do. There's going to be a lot of work that our legislature is going to have to do to change the law to accommodate this absolutely unprecedented situation we find ourselves in.
Sir, can we weather the storm on unemployment benefits? Do we have enough of a rainy day fund to do that?
I hope so. It remains to be seen. The federal government is going to have to step up, and I think that they will provide 100% coverage at some point, simply because there are too many states that don't have sufficient funds. People still need to live. They still need to be able to pay their rent. They need to be able to buy food. They need to be able to buy their medicine. That requires, when folks lost a job through no fault of their own, which 99% of people who are on unemployment today have because of this crisis, they need to be helped through it so that we can eventually put the crisis, stamp down the crisis as it relates to the virus, and then get the economy going again. But people are going to need help through this very, very painful transition, and that's up to the federal government and the state government.
We're on the ground, you're on the ground. What would you say to our seniors, particularly those in assisted living homes?
We feel terrible because your children and your grandchildren, they want to come see you, but it doesn't make sense to do that right now. Our first priority has to be your health. And so if you are at all bored and you have access to a telephone or a smartphone or a computer, call your grandkids. They're at home bored too. They just may not think to call you. So just stay connected with your neighbors in your facility, again, keeping appropriate distance, 6 feet apart, but stay connected with your loved ones outside the community. Just because they're not able to come see you doesn't mean they're not thinking about you and they don't love you. Just reach out to them.
Sir, any final thoughts in about a minute to close? And I would like you can expand on this maybe a little bit more in a minute, about the charity scams and hoarding, because we do see some people are hoarding, some businesses are hoarding, aren't they?
Yeah, we want people to be smart buyers, and part about being a smart buyer is recognizing there's more than just you. You could go to a grocery store and buy every roll of toilet paper, and you'd have plenty of toilet paper, and no one else in your community would have that. We're going to continue to have toilet paper throughout this crisis. So don't hoard. Think about people other than yourself and be considerate. And the charity scam is actually the opposite. Charity scams are people who generally want to help other people, who have the means to make contributions to help folks who are struggling, young people who are falling behind in their education, people who don't have income to buy food. I just contributed to the local food bank here in North Carolina. People should give to the extent they are able, but they should also be aware that there are bad people who want to use this to steal. Don't give just because somebody emails you a good name charity, a charity that has a good sounding name. Give to those that you know are going to be good and that you have familiarity with and you trust.
Give us the number to call you one more time and we'll close, sir.
877-5-NO-SCAM. Look, there are bad people out there trying to take advantage of you. Be suspicious of them, but also understand the vast majority of people want to cooperate, work together to get through this unprecedented crisis, and we will get through it together.
Thank you, Josh. Really appreciate you being here. Everybody stay safe, follow the CDC rules, and stay healthy. Have a great weekend.